I never imagined a cleaner's kindness could change everything. As a millionaire watched in tears, I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun shone bright, but my heart was heavy. I stood in the middle of a lavish hotel lobby, surrounded by the buzz of laughter and chatter, yet felt utterly alone. The glimmering chandeliers overhead felt like mockery. I gripped the invitation in my trembling hands, my pulse racing. I was invited to the charity gala, but here I was, ready to ruin it all. In that moment, my past wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. My father, long gone, used to say, "Everything comes with a price." I had always thought he meant money, but now I realized he spoke of hope, and I had none left. Closing my eyes for a second, I could hear the whispers. "She doesn't belong here. Look at her dress, it's from last season." I felt my cheeks flush. I was not always like this. Once, I was a brilliant up-and-comer, climbing the corporate ladder with fervor. That was before the merger, before everything slipped away because someone wanted it all and forgot about the human cost. Then, I saw her. A cleaner, in her blue uniform, was picking up the remnants of a spilled drink. Her movements were gentle, almost graceful. It stopped me. She looked up, locking eyes with me for just a moment. There was kindness in her gaze, a mirror reflecting the struggles I was hiding. I felt a lump forming in my throat. Why was I even thinking of this now? Why could I not shake the feeling that her presence was more than mere coincidence? Just as I turned away, the chaos erupted. A sudden shriek, strings of shattered glass, and a heavy thud. My heart stopped. I rushed forward, adrenaline surging. The cleaner had fallen, and as I knelt beside her, the crowd grew silent. I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears. I didn't know why, but something deep inside me felt the urgency to help. All eyes were on us. I heard gasps and murmurs. "Is she all right? Help her." I pressed my hands against the cleaner's trembling shoulders. "Stay with me," I urged, my voice breaking. As sirens wailed in the distance, something within me ignited. I realized then that the graceful cleaner, the one who simply tried to bring order to chaos, held more power than I ever could in this world of wealth and privilege. But what if I had been wrong about everything? What if her kindness was the catalyst for a change I never anticipated? The questions crashed like waves in my mind, drowning out the noise around us. I glanced back at the sea of people, the millionaire at the back, glaring in horror, tears glistening in his eyes. My heart raced. Why was he crying? What was the connection? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sound of sirens grew louder, I could feel time grinding to a halt. The crowd swelled, a sea of faces morphing from shock to concern, and I felt that familiar ache deep inside me. I wanted to run, to hide away from all the judgment and superficiality, yet here I was, knelt beside a woman who had shown me a glimpse of true humanity amid the glittering facade of wealth. The cleaner's eyelids fluttered as she fought against the darkness creeping in. "Please, stay with me," I whispered again, the tremor in my voice betraying my composure. I could sense the eyes of the millionaire piercing through the crowd, and with each passing moment, I felt the weight of his gaze like a heavy cloak on my shoulders. Why was he unable to look away? What secret was hidden behind those tear-filled eyes? "Get away from her." A voice barked from behind me, pulling me from my focus. It was a member of the hotel staff, an overly polished man in a crisp suit. The tone was sharp, urgent, cutting like a knife. I flinched at his words. The moment felt surreal. Here I was, caring for a woman in distress, and yet I was being pushed aside like a nuisance. That a surge of defiance coiled within me. "She needs help," I shot back, raising my chin defiantly, daring to challenge the authority I had always felt trapped by. The server hesitated, confused by the fervor of my plea, even as more medical personnel arrived, quickly positioning themselves around the cleaner, rushing to assess her condition. In the turmoil of flashing lights and bustling bodies, I felt a warmth brush against my left hand. I turned to see that a delicate hand of another onlooker had reached out, squeezing mine for an instant before retracting. It was a fleeting moment, a connection forged in shared concern, but it buoyed my spirit, drawing unwanted tears to the surface. Is she going to be okay? I murmured, not entirely directing the question at anyone in particular. But the millionaire stepped forward, commandeering attention as he pulled a woman, presumably a nurse, aside to consult. I could barely hear their conversation through the pounding in my chest. He was so intently worried that despite the chaos, I could see the humanity in him shine through. The glimmer in his eyes mirrored my anxiety, my desperation for hope. Yet here he stood, a man surrounded by opulence, tears sliding down his cheeks. Why couldn't I shake the feeling that he and the cleaner were somehow intertwined in this moment? That a connection existed beyond the tragic circumstances? The paramedics worked quickly, and soon they had the cleaner on a stretcher, preparing to whisk her away. In a final act of instinct, I reached out and grabbed her hand, feeling the faint pulse beneath her skin. You'll be all right, I promised, not entirely convinced. You're not alone. With a jolt, the stretcher rolled away. I stumbled back, realizing I had sprinted toward the chaos without thinking of my own emotions, my own wounds. The gala, with its gaudy decorations and hollow laughter, felt like a far-off memory now. What are you doing here? The millionaire's voice broke through my reverie, catching me off guard. I turned toward him to find a mix of vulnerability and anger swirling in his gaze. Something inside me shifted. Do you even know her? The words cut through the air like ice. I don't. Not really. I stumbled over my thoughts, searching for honesty. But she means something. She's kind, and I felt connected to her. His expression faltered, revealing a glimpse of something deeper. You think she isn't used to being treated like a person? There was a tremor in his voice that seemed to shatter the facade of wealth. It happens all the time. But you looked at her like she mattered. Something in him shifted. His anger dissipated, replaced by a fragile thread of understanding. I've been trying to do better, he confessed quietly, his voice lowering. Since the accident, I thought I could change things. But here we are, and I feel so helpless. Suddenly, everything felt overwhelming. The weight of unshared pain hovered between us three, binding us together with unspoken anguish. I wanted to reach out, to show kindness just as the cleaner always had, a flickering light through my discontent. But just before I could find the words, another voice interrupted our moment. Excuse me, are you the one who? I followed the nurse's frantic gaze as she approached the millionaire, shaking from the heat of the moment. Hope coursed through me. Perhaps there was something wonderful in store, something that would weave our stories into one tapestry of healing. Then, without warning, everything shifted again. The nurse paused, tension inflating every ounce of air around us. I need to tell you both, there's been a complication. We lost her pulse on the way to the hospital. A collective gasp rippled through our small gathering. In a mere heartbeat, hope shattered like glass, leaving only raw grief suspended in the air. I locked eyes with the millionaire. The walls of his world, the privilege, the distance, the tears came crashing down. For a second, we were just two people standing amidst the ruins, hearts heavy and intertwined, equally terrified of what lay ahead. And as we braced ourselves for the pain that would undoubtedly follow, a whisper of realization crept into my mind. Perhaps true change required embracing the chaos, holding on to the bond that gripped us together for a fleeting moment before plunging us into darkness. But now what lay beyond? I had no idea. And as the tension swelled, fear gripped me. What would happen next for all of us? The sirens had faded into the distance, leaving behind a haunting silence. I stood there, still reeling from the nurse's devastating words, my breath catching in my throat. The air felt thick with despair, a palpable weight that pressed down on my chest. The crowd dispersed slowly, their chatter reduced to whispers, each passerby casting fleeting glances of pity. But in that moment, I could only focus on the still form of the cleaner, her spirit barely flickering but a presence that had already changed something within me. What happens now? The millionaire's voice cut through my thoughts, raw and broken. His eyes searched mine, a plea wrapped in anguish. I couldn't find an answer, and instead, I felt the creeping sensation of hopelessness enveloping me. I don't know, I stammered. Slowly, I closed my eyes, channeling every ounce of my energy into envisioning a miracle. Maybe they'll bring her back, maybe. But even I didn't believe the words. The rawness of grief carved deep into my heart, clawing at the walls I had built. The connection I felt with the cleaner, fleeting and brief, was overpowering. It had stumbled into the cracks of my carefully constructed existence. The memories of her tending to the lavish hotel, such humility contrasted against the ostentatiousness around her, reverberated in my mind like a cruel memory. Yet, as the chaos receded and the streetlights flickered on, illuminating the street in soft, ethereal light, a small gesture caught my eye. A child wandered back into the scene, his small hand gripping a locket that had slipped from the cleaner's pocket, the one that glinted with delicate engraving of a flower. The boy approached with wide, innocent eyes, unaware of the shroud of sadness surrounding us. He called out hesitantly, Is this for you?" Holding it toward me as if it were a precious jewel, with shaking hands, I accepted the locket, tracing my fingers over the intricate design pulled from the seams of loss. In that infinitesimal moment, a flicker of hope ignited within me, a whisper that kindness could still prevail. I took a deep breath, overwhelmed with emotion, recalling how the cleaner had always welcomed the small joys of life, reminding us that even a simple smile could bridge a chasm of despair. The millionaire, seeing the locket in my hand, took a step closer. "She had a family," he murmured, the gravity of his words crashing around us like waves. "They must be waiting for news. I have to let them know." The fear flickered in his eyes, mingling with remorse, a deep ache born of negligence that perhaps had carried long before this night. The tension between us tightened once again, a bond forged from an unexpected tragedy. "Yes," I agreed, voice trembling as I dared to reach out to him. "And maybe we can do this together." We were both moved by her light. "It's our turn to help her." He hesitated briefly, glancing at the fading scene of flashing lights, the chaos turning into memories that would linger long after the last breath. Then, in an inspired moment of spontaneity, he nodded. "Okay, you're right," he said firmly, determination lacing his tone as he pulled out his phone. "He'll make the call." As he dialed, I stood beside him, heart racing. The two of us lingered at the fringes of an emotional abyss, poised on the brink of a promise, one that could either unravel us or stitch us together. A passerby stopped, a compassionate soul who seemed to recognize our shared grief, and gently placed a warm hand on the millionaire's shoulder. The gesture felt like a lifebuoy amid the mounting storms of sorrow. Through the phone, the millionaire's voice trembled, but he pressed onward, articulating a story of kindness and narrative that had transcended the boundaries between us. The silence enveloped us, pressing around the stillness of memory. I felt a brightness igniting, the warmth of connection slowly washing over me like sunlight piercing through clouds. But then, just as hope began to flicker more brightly, his expression twisted in fear, tension clawing at the lines of his face. "What do you mean she's not at the hospital?" A flash of anguish crossed his features, and the hand that had reached for my shoulder fell away. "What?" My heart sank as the words hung in the air like an ominous storm cloud. "What do you mean?" Panic gripped my chest as I realized that the enormity of our actions was spiraling beyond our control. The conversation continued, but I was lost in a swirl of possibilities. Panic surged through me, wrapping tighter than barbed wire. She had slipped from our grasp, and now she was lost in the dark. The world that had felt just within reach now seemed unbearably vast and unwelcoming. The millionaire ended the call, his face pale. "They haven't even found her yet. We're too late." The gravity of his words crashed over me, a wave threatening to pull me under. I stumbled backward, clutching the locket tightly, feeling the intricate curves digging into my palm. All of the life I had felt surge through me was now being eclipsed by the vast uncertainty of the moment. With despair weighing heavily in my heart, I turned to meet his gaze. The bond that we had formed in those fragile moments now felt threaded with fear. I could scarcely comprehend what lay before us. It was burdened with unanswered questions and shadows that stretched into the unknown. A voice whispered inside me. What if this was only the beginning? What if standing at the precipice of loss could thread us back to the very humanity we craved? As tears threatened to spill over, I locked eyes with his once more, wishing I could speak the words that now eluded me. "Then we have to find her," I whispered, my voice steadying on the slow burn of determination. Whatever it takes. Hope surged again, a flicker igniting fervently within me. We would not let her slip through the cracks of despair. If nothing else, this bond between us, this shared pain, would drive us to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And with that understanding coursing through me, I stepped back toward the darkness, ready to reclaim that fleeting light we had almost lost. The darkness seemed to hum with a life of its own, the night air thickening around us as the $1 Million Hotel stood still in the background, a stark contrast to the churning tumult inside me. I glanced at the millionaire, his jaw set, mouth pressed into a thin line of resolve. We had one path forward. A shared urgency echoed between us despite the weight of uncertainty. Searching the streets, we found ourselves drifting toward the alleys behind the hotel. Each step felt heavier, laden with the memories of the cleaner, the laughter, the small acknowledgments of kindness she had scattered around like seeds. She might have gone back to the neighborhood she lived in, the millionaire suggested, his voice a tangible mix of regret and determination. Yes, we should start there, I confirmed, my heart racing not only with anxiety, but with anticipation. Perhaps the cleaner's kindness had touched others. Perhaps we would find someone who could guide us. As we walked, shadows flickered in the dim glow of streetlights, revealing graffiti-laden walls and remnants of a community that felt just beyond the glittering facade of the hotel. The streets turned familiar yet foreign, my stomach twisting with each step that brought me closer to an unfamiliar sense of purpose. Here, a woman called out under a flickering streetlight, her voice muffled by the heavy silence surrounding us. It was as if the night itself was transforming around her presence. Hope glimmered in her eyes despite the weariness etched on her face. I saw her. The cleaner. My breath caught in my throat, rising with both disbelief and hope. You did? I pressed, stepping forward, drawing the millionaire closer, the desperation in my voice echoing my need for answers. She came this way, heading toward the old community center. The woman continued, gesturing down the street. She often helped out there. Do you know if she's safe? The millionaire's voice trembled, desperation finally cracking through his carefully constructed exterior. No one's seen her since. Her words hung in the air, heavy as lead. But she brings light wherever she goes. If you're looking for her, you're in the right place. Inspired by her words, we raced toward the center, my heart thumping against my ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. The dusty building loomed ahead, its sharp outlines softened in the dim light. The chatter of children and faint echoes of laughter still danced through the air, a reminder of the joy that our search was rooted in. As we entered, the warm ambience engulfed us, and I caught glimpses of families gathered around tables adorned with colorful crafts and shared meals. It felt alive with the very essence of the community the cleaner had devoted her time to. "I'll ask around," I said, urging the millionaire to stay close. I approached a mother kneeling beside her child, their laughter bubbling up like an infectious melody. "Excuse me, have you seen the cleaner?" I felt the lump in my throat growing larger at the thought of her absence. The woman looked up, hesitation flickering like a candle's flame across her features. "You mean Maria? She hasn't come around for a while. We're all worried." The memories flooded back. Maria with her jovial spirit and kindness that wrapped everyone in a warm embrace. How had I taken that for granted? "I need to find her," I implored, desperation creeping into my voice. "Do you know where she might be? She used to help down at the shelters. Maybe she's there." The millionaire leaned in, his eyes dark with concern but lit with a growing sense of urgency. "Let's go," he said, already moving toward the door. We stepped out into the night again, a tangible pulse igniting between us, driving us onward. As we navigated the winding streets, I pressed my fingers against the locket I still clutched tightly. Its warm metal felt like a tether to a life filled with light and laughter, the very essence I was desperate to preserve. But as we neared the shelter, the air changed thick with uncertainty, shadows stretching long ahead. I pushed myself forward, and the streetlights flickered as if in warning, casting erratic shadows that danced across the ground. Suddenly, I heard the familiar sound of sobbing, spilling into the night. Rushing forward, we rounded the corner to find a small group gathered outside the shelter, their faces drawn and desolate. I felt my heart drop. Something wasn't right. Among them was a figure I recognized, crumpled on the steps. Someone I knew well, but never truly saw until that moment. It was Mariah's sister. Please, not my sister. Her voice broke, and suddenly the weight in my chest turned to lead. But I had to discover the truth, to face whatever lay ahead. With trembling legs, I approached her, and the words fell from my lips almost involuntarily. Where's Maria? Her eyes met mine, filled with raw emotion. They found her at the bridge, and just like that, the fragile thread that connected hope and despair withered to nothing. Everything I had worked for, every small flicker of light extinguished under the enormity of her words as the world around me spun. The locket slipped from my fingers, clattering to the ground, its soft metallic clink resonating through the silence, echoing a devastating truth I feared to confront. The streets coiled tightly around the night, an inseparable mix of shadows and flickering orange streetlights painting a haunting picture. I stood frozen, the echoes of disbelief crashing in rhythm with my heart. Maria gone? The words repeated in my mind like a cruel refrain, each syllable tightening the grip of anguish inside me. Mariah's sister cradled her face in her hands, her sobs hitching the air, punctuating the heavy silence around us. I didn't know what to say, how to comfort her. I felt like I was drowning in despair, the warmth of hope extinguished like a small flame snuffed out by the wind. The millionaire had stepped back, his composure shattered, his eyes gleaming with unshed tears that reflected the flickering streetlight next to us. I'm sorry. I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper, yet it felt inadequate, feeble. One could scarcely encompass a life extinguished, especially one that had been so full of light. She was amazing. She helped so many people. Her sister looked up, her tired eyes barely registering me. People don't understand how much she cared. She always put others first, even when it hurt her. Always chasing after hope like it was just within her reach. Each word struck, carving deeper the wound I did not know was there. Maria had been a beacon, an anchor for this community, and now that very fabric began to unravel before my eyes. What happened? The millionaire asked, his voice trembling with barely concealed anguish. She argued with someone near the bridge, a stranger. Her sister replied, pain layering her tone. They said she was trying to help. That's just who she was. But sometimes, it doesn't matter how good you are to the world. She paused, voice thick. They found her in the water. I can't believe she's gone. As her sister's words hung in the air, I felt the night deepen, the darkness pressing in against me like a vice. In that moment, I realized how deeply I had taken Maria for granted, just as I had taken every soft moment of kindness for a granted given. I turned away, deliberating if crying now would be an intrusion upon this unbearable pain. But the tears stung, and the world blurred as I wrestled with my emotions, a guilt that burgeoned like a storm inside my chest. She was just here, I murmured almost to myself, the raw truth echoing starkly against the surroundings. She was just here. Then, against the backdrop of mourning, something began to shift. A movement caught my periphery, an unexpected figure approaching from the shadows. A young man with a skateboard caught my attention. He was panting slightly as if he had been rushing, his hair tousled and wild. Hey, he called, stopping in front of us, his gaze flitting between Maria's sister and myself. I heard from someone that you might be looking for her. Uncertainty mingled with the thudding ache in my heart. Do you know where she is? I asked, a desperate hitch in my voice. The young man shifted his weight, apprehension shadowing his face. They say she went after someone, a girl at the bridge. I think this is important. They hurt her, and she was trying to help. A chill crawled up my spine, curiosity battling against fear. What do you mean? Listen, I know Maria, he said fiercely. She was always there for us. I saw her last week near the center. She had this idea she was thinking about teaming up with some folks to help out more. But then, he stopped, eyes reflecting the hurt coursing through us all. Look, I saw someone following her. I didn't realize until it was too late that my heartbeat quickened. You saw someone? Do you know who? He dropped his gaze and shook his head. No, but I think it was someone from the hotel. I just felt it. A tremor of rage flickered through me. The hotel, the same place that had wrapped me in comfort, in denial, while Maria fought to bring justice to this community. We need to find out who it was, I whispered, half to myself, my newfound determination surging through the air. Suddenly, There was a glimmer of the flame Maria ignited within Meth, need for truth, for justice burning. Bright again. The millionaire stepped forward, translating my resolve. We will find out, he affirmed, his voice steady but the weight of sorrow still lingering. Maria deserved better, and if there's any chance we could find out what happened, what led to this, he looked between the faces of Mariah's sister and the young man. We owe it to her, as the shadows lengthened and the night pressed heavily. A small ember of hope ignited within us. Perhaps Mariah's kindness could fuel a fight, a search for answers to honor her memory. We gathered ourselves, a new determination brewing in the chaotic pain of grief. But as we prepared to leave, the young man stepped closer, a look of dread crossing his features. Wait, if you go to the hotel, you need to be careful. They don't want anyone digging around. There are others who've gone missing, and well, it might not end well. His warning sent a shock through me, icy fingers grasping my resolve. Perhaps this journey had always been more than just about finding Mariette, was now intertwined with uncovering a darkness that loomed larger than I ever knew. As we turned to leave, a distant siren sang out, slicing through the stillness of the night. In that moment, my heart raced not only from fear, but from a burgeoning realization. The journey to seek answers wouldn't only challenge our courage, it would usher in a storm I could never have anticipated. I didn't just have to confront the weight of loss, I was about to face an entire world where kindness was not only rare, but could bring peril upon those who sought it. With breath caught in my throat, I glanced back toward the group, a partnership forged in grief, hope, and danger forming between us. A decision coalesced within, we would not stand down. But as we pressed onward, a gnawing uncertainty nestled in my mind. A question lingered, stark and cold. What if striving for the truth only served to open a Pandora's box, one that could sweep away everything I thought I understood? The evening air was thick with tension as we made our way toward the towering structure of the hotel, the looming shadows reminding me of our vulnerable state. The earlier flicker of hope that surged through me dimmed against the encroaching fear. Each step echoed with the weight of our shared burden, a haunting reminder of Maria, a vibrant soul who had woven herself into the very fabric of our lives. The skateboarder, whose name I learned was Ethan, led the way. His familiar urgency contrasted sharply with the gravity of what lay ahead, the neon lights of the hotel flickering, casting an eerie glow on his determined expression. With every glance back at the packed streets, filled with oblivious pedestrians, I was reminded that life continued elsewhere. While we held tightly onto the memory of a life extinguished too soon, as we reached the entrance, the doorman looked at us with an arch of his brow, a silent challenge in his gaze. The millionaire approached him, his demeanor suddenly sharp and commanding. "We need to speak to someone about an incident involving one of your guests." It's urgent. A flicker of recognition passed over the doorman's face, but he quickly masked it with a stoic expression. "You'll want to speak with management." With a curt nod, he gestured towards the glass doors that opened into the lobby. The lobby was a stark contrast to the night outside. Lavish chandeliers hung like heavy clouds above us, and the air was tinged with the scent of expensive cologne mingled with something sharper, something secret. A small receptionist watched us with cautious interest, one eye on her computer screen, while the other seemed to weigh our potential for trouble. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice professional yet laced with apprehension. "We're looking for information regarding a guest involved in an emergency," the millionaire said, his voice steady but with an underlying urgency. "A woman named Maria, the mention of her name." The receptionist's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, an involuntary tightening of her lips, a quick glance around the room, as if surveying potential eavesdroppers. "I can't disclose any information," she replied quickly. "Please leave the property if you don't have a reservation." But we didn't follow her command. I felt the tug of determination pulling me forward, as if Mariah's spirit was urging me to push against the walls of silence. "We know she was trying to help someone. Someone from here hurt her. We deserve to know. The community deserves to know." As I spoke, the weight of my words hung heavy in the air. The receptionist hesitated, caught between the duty imposed upon her and the flicker of empathy that surfaced in her gaze. Then, with a deep breath, she whispered, "I can't talk here. Come back around the side, in 10 minutes. You'll see what I can do." She dashed off, her movements deliberate, and we exchanged silent glances, Collective breaths held as we counted down the seconds. What would she risk to reveal? The environment set me on edge. I could feel the eyes of the hotel guests, comfortable and oblivious in their wealth, trailing us like shadows that as we waited, Ethan leaned closer. What if she doesn't come back? Or what if? He trailed off, uncertainty painting his voice. Then we'll figure something else out, I reassured him, though deep down, I could feel apprehension tightening its grip on my heart. We can't give up. Finally, the receptionist reappeared, looking around furtively before beckoning us to follow her through a narrow corridor. At the end, she led us to a small, dimly lit room cluttered with old furniture and unclaimed packages far removed from the hotel's lavish public face. That I shouldn't be here, she said urgently, glancing back over her shoulder. You need to know that if anyone sees me with you, it can be dangerous. The atmosphere shifted, thickening as if the very walls bore witness to unspoken truths. Maria, I pressed, feeling the desperation in my voice. What happened? The receptionist hesitated, guilt creasing her brow. I saw her the night she went missing, she began, her voice trembling. She was arguing with someone, but I couldn't hear everything. I didn't think it was serious. I thought she could handle it. What was he saying? The question slipped out, filled with urgency. He was angry, shouting about losing someone important. Her eyes widened with realization. I thought he was just some random guy, unrelated to anything. Then, later that night, I saw him again, talking to others who looked sinister. Sinister? I echoed, urgency bubbling and swelling within. There's a group that hangs around here, people who don't take kindly to those like Maria, she said softly, her voice shaking. I don't know why they're drawn to her, but they are. If she tried to help someone, it might have been one of them. The implications of her words washed over me. Dread filled me anew. A dark undercurrent ran beneath the surface, a malignant force juxtaposed against Mariah's radiant spirit. Just then, a sharp knock echoed from the door, rattling the walls of our somber sanctuary. Everything all right in there? A voice boomed from outside, authoritative and unyielding. The receptionist's face paled. I have to go now. She dashed for the exit, the tension mounting like a storm overhead. I was too stunned to react, even as she slipped back into the facade of normalcy. But even though she was gone, I felt the sting of urgency still tethered to my heart, a relentless pull toward uncovering the truth. As we stood in the small room, realization struck me hard. We had stumbled upon something far greater than just the loss of Maria. This was about saving others, diving into the dark underbelly of a world that thrived on secrecy and fear. But before I could voice my thoughts to the group, another chilling sound echoed through the shattering glass, a cacophony of chaos breaking loose. My heart raced at the sudden realization. If we didn't act fast, we might not only lose the trail to uncovering Mariah's fate, we might lose everything else we held dear in the process. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I turned to Ethan and the millionaire, determination igniting. Let's go. We can't wait any longer. We need to find out what we're up against. Just as we moved to leave, a figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the vibrant light of the hallway. I felt the blood rush from my face as recognition surged. No, I gasped, paralyzed with shock and fear as they stepped closer. The unmistakable face of someone I had never expected to see again. Someone entwined in Mariah's tragedy stood before us, a shadow of hidden intentions lurking beneath a mask of familiarity. It was an encounter I could never have prepared for, the revelation crashing over me like a wave, propelling our journey into a tumultuous unknown. The figure in the doorway stepped into the light, the air thickening with a palpable tension. It was Olivia, Mariah's childhood friend, the one person whose absence had resonated through our hearts ever since she vanished that fateful night. The shock of seeing her again sent ripples of confusion through me, a wild cocktail of emotions sparking to life. How had she ended up here, at this very moment, in this hidden room laden with jeopardy? Ethan's stance shifted, muscles tense, and ready to spring into action. The millionaire's expression, too, transformed from steely resolve to profound sorrow as he locked eyes with her. Olivia, he croaked, disbelief lacing his voice. What are you doing here? Her gaze flickered between us, a mirror of sorrow, guilt, and raw vulnerability that made it difficult to breathe. I thought I could help, she stammered, her words trembling like leaves caught in a gale. I never imagined it would lead me back here, to this place. The storm of emotions spiraled tighter, encompassing the memories of childhood laughter and shared dreams that felt so distant now. I could almost hear the hum of their friendship echoing in my mind, overshadowed by the realization of the darkness that had descended upon us. Help with what? I pressed, urgency spilling out in my voice. Maria, she whispered. She started asking questions about those people. I thought if I could find her way back, make sense of her plan, maybe she could be safe. But then I got pulled into it all. It was a mistake. Ethan stepped forward, connecting the dots with a keen eye. What do you mean pulled into it? Were you threatened? Olivia shook her head, a mix of defiance and fragility in her expression. There's a group. They don't want anyone meddling in their affairs. They told me to leave it alone, that I could get hurt, but it wasn't just about Maria. It was something bigger, much bigger than any of us. The shadows of her words unspooled in the air, creating a web of uncertainty that enveloped us. I felt a flicker of fear, realizing we were just pawns in a much darker game than I had anticipated. What did you find out? I asked, sensing the urgency of the moment slipping away from our grasp like grains of sand. They're involved in a lot of dirty work here, Olivia murmured, distress threading through her voice. It's all about control over everything. In a place like this, no one is safe if they step out of line. We have to be careful. Before I could respond, the shattering of glass from the lobby echoed again, reverberating through the room like a gunshot. We flinched as the heavy air seemed to thrum with danger, the urgency twisting our thoughts into frantic plans. We need to leave now, the millionaire said, his tone rising with authority that struck me as both comforting and terrifying. No more talking, but Olivia's eyes locked with mine, desperation spilling from her heart. Wait, there's something else. I have a connection to one of those people. Someone on the inside who could help. The mention of an insider sent the room spinning. Do they know you're involved? Ethan snapped that I didn't tell them anything. They trust me, sort of, she replied, hesitation draping her words like a heavy cloak. But I need your help. We could turn the tide if we expose the truth. Before I could weigh my options, the familiar echo of approaching footsteps grew louder outside, shadowing the doorway that was now painted with the light of looming danger. The juxtaposition between opportunity and risk glimmered harshly in the dimness. This could be our only shot, I whispered, glancing at Ethan and then at the millionaire. They both exchanged uncertain looks, calculating the weight of Olivia's words against the approaching threat. The footsteps halted, and the tension coiled tighter, ready to snap. We can't just leave without a plan, I urged, the panic cracking through my resolve. What do we do? Olivia stepped forward, her voice a tremor, but resolute. We confront them. I know where they gather. There's a placia bar not far from here. If we're careful and quick, we can overhear their plans. It's risky, but if we can blend in, I can guide you in that moment. The difficult calculus of hope and fear danced chaotically in my chest. An idea sparked, but it was tinged with dread. We were stepping into treacherous waters, our choices before us fracturing in complexity. Just then, a low voice cut through the murmur of our minds, cold and authoritative. What exactly are you doing in here? My blood turned to ice as I recognized the voice, a shiver racing through me. The figure silhouetted in the doorway was one of those sinister types the receptionist had whispered about. The shadow thickened with ill intent, gripping the air with menace. But before panic could overwhelm reason, it dawned on me. This was our chance. An unexpected truth surged forward. We had the power to challenge this darkness, to draw the battle lines for Maria and so many others. We're here to reclaim what you took. I found myself declaring, defiance sparking like a fire within me, a wish to protect what remained of Mariah's spirit. Before I could contemplate the consequences of those words, the weight of challenge thrown like a gauntlet, the figure stepped fully into the room, their intentions casting an even darker shadow, and I realized that the moment we had stepped into this world, everything had irrevocably changed. The hourglass was tipping, and the sands of time were slipping rapidly away. The figure stood there, a looming presence framed in the doorway. Recognition flashed through me, and the tendrils of dread coiled tighter around my heart. The person was a low-level enforcer I had seen in the lobby earlier, a face that blended into the shadows, too familiar with the dark dealings that surrounded us. "What did you just say?" he demanded, voice low and menacing, as if daring me to repeat myself. I braced myself, the air thickening with the weight of his intent. "We want back what you took from us," I reiterated, my voice trembling yet emboldened by an unexpected surge of bravery. It was as if I could feel Maria's spirit urging me on, reminding me of what was at stake. Olivia shifted closer to me, her hand brushing against mine, lending warmth in the chill of looming threat. Ethan, too, seemed to make a mental calculation, shifting his body in front of me, standing tall despite the fear that flashed in his eyes. The enforcer stepped fully into the room, his demeanor shifting from surprise to calculated menace. "You've made a mistake coming here. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Then tell us." Ethan shot back, the ferocity of his anger cutting through the tension, the cornered animal showing its claws. "What do you know about Maria? Because if you think we're scared of you, you're wrong." The enforcer's eyes narrowed, gauging our resolve. "Cute. But you should know, it's wise to play nice with the people in power. You don't want to upset the balance. We're not responsible for what happens to people who get in our way." A flicker of movement at the corner of my vision caught my attention. Olivia was reacting to the enforcer, her face going pale, and I felt a spike of worry. "There's more to this than you understand," she whispered urgently, her voice barely above a breath. "If he's here, it means enough," the enforcer barked, dismissing her like an annoying insect. "You think you can just walk in here and—" Before he could finish, the back door burst open, and a figure rushed in, breathless and wide-eyed. It was Marco, Olivia's brother. "Olivia!" he yelled, panic lacing his tone. The tension in the room shifted abruptly. Suddenly, there was a hint of danger from behind our would-be adversary. His arrival created a brief opportunity for chaos. "Get back!" I shouted, my instincts kicking in as the enforcer turned, caught off guard. Marco's presence was a harbinger of unpredictability, a reminder of how interconnected we all were in this web spun of fear and desperation. "Everyone, out," Marco ordered, urgency slicing through the chaos. He glanced at Ethan, recognizing the danger. "I saw the way you were heading. We need to go." Now that I hesitated, torn between the spark of hope ignited by Marco's intervention and the lurking threat of the enforcer. "But Maria, let's figure out how to find her alive first," Marco insisted, edging backward toward the exit, urging us with every morsel of power he could muster. The enforcer, realizing his advantage was dwindling, lunged toward us. But in that split-second moment of distraction, Ethan surged forward, shoving the enforcer back with an unexpected ferocity. "Run," he shouted, and as we stumbled out into the hall, footsteps echoed behind us, an ominous chant of pursuit igniting the primal fight-or-flight response within me. We dashed through the corridor, our breaths a cacophony of panic as we escaped into the stillness outside, the night air hitting our faces like a wave of clarity. But relief was fleeting. The weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the balance. "Where do we go?" Olivia gasped, her eyes darting left and right as if searching for an exit from fate itself. "Follow me," Marco commanded, already on the move, leading us into the safety of darkness painted with the faint glow of streetlights. As we weaved through alleyways painted with shadows, I felt the unreality of the moment start to settle in. The race against time transformed into trepidation, knitting heartache into the moments we shared. Each of us bore the risk of betrayal echoing through silent screams. The night was thick with unspoken fears of what awaited us. That it was Marco who finally broke the deafening silence, his tone somber yet fierce. "If they find us, it's over. The bar Olivia mentioned, it's our best shot at uncovering what they're hiding. But we need concrete plans. No more surprises. They will not hesitate to crush us." "Yes, but if we confront them and they're as powerful as you say," Ethan leaned in, his voice steady but laced with fear. "What are we really risking?" With my heart thrumming like a battle drum, a chilling thought crashed against my mind. What if this journey led us not only to Maria, but to the truth that could shatter our fragile resolve? Suddenly, the distinctive thud of hurried footsteps fired up behind us, relentless, hungry. I pushed forward, dread creeping into my voice. "We need to separate," I shouted, and just as my words were spoken, a gunshot rang out, splitting the night and sending shards of fear deep within us. In a cascade of panic-driven choices, we scrambled in different directions, hearts pounding. I didn't know if I was running toward salvation or into the jaws of something much worse. With every heartbeat, every breath, the distance between hope and despair stretched thin that I melded into the shadows, the icy grip of fear and uncertainty wrapping around me as I separated from my friends, desperate not to be caught. But in that instant, I caught a glimpse of Miguel, lurking in the darkness ahead. Eyes darting like the flicker of lightning, was he the one to bring us both salvation and ruin? "Come with me," he whispered urgently, beckoning as I hesitated, weighing the trust one had left in broken bonds. "I know where to go. We're not safe here." I was torn between the kindness of a familiar face and the frightening unknown around me. In that moment of decision, a shattering crash echoed through the stillness, an ominous clarion call signaling dangers yet to come. I stood there, fears colliding with the sharp pang of desperation. I poised on the edge of risk, knowing that whatever the cost, my heart had made its choice. The very fabric of our bond was at stake, and another storm was brewing just beyond the corner of fate. The world around me blurred as I followed Miguel's whispered promise of safety, each step more treacherous than the last. Shadows intertwined and danced around us, the remnants of night closing in with a sinister intent. My heart raced, uncertainty flickering like a candle in a storm. Would I find refuge with him, or merely walk deeper into a perilous unknown? "Where are we going?" I breathed, trying to keep the fear from overtaking my voice. "What do you know?" He glanced back, his face illuminated momentarily by the flickering glow of a distant street lamp, revealing a weariness that eclipsed his youthful features. "There's a safe house not far from here," he said, urgency propelling his words. "But we need to hurry. They know the streets better than we do." I hesitated. Was this truly the best option? Miguel had once been a friend, but friendships can fray under pressure. My thoughts flickered to Olivia, Ethan, and Marco, dispersed into the night like fragile seeds carried off by the wind. I fought against the fear that clung to me, demanding I turn back and regroup. But I had no choice. I couldn't linger in the street, exposed and vulnerable. As we navigated the maze of alleyways, echoes of distant gunfire punctuated the murky air, a reminder of the storm brewing around us. I couldn't shake the feeling that every corner could yield another danger, each shadow a potential betrayal. "Why were you following us?" I asked, more than compelled by instinct than by doubt. A flicker of vulnerability crossed Miguel's face. "I had to know what you were doing. After everything that happened with Maria, I couldn't let you go in alone." His voice lowered, struggling against the weight of his own regrets. "I didn't want anyone else to get hurt." We finally reached a dilapidated building, its facade crumbling but exuding an odd sense of sanctuary amidst the chaos. Miguel glanced around before pushing open the creaking door, gesturing me inside. I hesitated at the threshold, the sudden onset of tension halting my steps. "What if this is a trap? Do you really think I would risk everything, including my own safety, to lure you in?" His eyes burned with earnestness, and for a fleeting moment, I felt the remnants of trust rush back. Perhaps I was clinging to shadows of the past, but in this world layered with deceit, it felt like all I had left. I stepped inside, and he followed, locking the door behind us. The dim light revealed a sparsely furnished room, dust motes swirling in the air, a thin veil separating history from the present. Old photographs lined the walls, reminiscent of another time. A house steeped in memories, but they felt hauntingly distant now, a mere echo of something lost. "What now?" I asked, my voice wavering as the gravity of our situation settled in. Miguel began rummaging through a drawer, pulling out a pile of papers and a cell phone. "We need to make contact, find out if anyone's still alive that can help us locate Maria." Hope flickered within me. "You really think someone can help?" I asked, half skeptical, half desperate. "Trust me," he said, confidently, yet I could sense the fear underlying his bravado. "We have connections. They've been watching since the beginning, just like us." As Miguel dialed a number, the anticipation hung thick in the air. I could hardly contain the mounting despair and rising hope, clashing within like storm clouds. "What if they don't answer?" "They will," he assured me, brushing a hand across the phone screen and biting his lip as he waited. Finally, the ringing ceased, replaced by a crackling voice. "Hello?" The urgency in the tone struck me, reverberating through my bones. Luca, it's Miguel. We need urgent help. There are people after us, and I have reason to believe they've taken Maria, he said, urgency lacing his words. A pause followed, pregnant with tension. I held my breath, every second pulling me deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. They'll do what I can, Luca replied eventually, his voice crackling through the line, but it's going to take time. You need to lay low. I can't promise anything not yet that we don't have time. They'll find us. Miguel protested, desperation creeping into his tone. Luca's response came in a hushed yet commanding whisper. Then you better find a way to distract them before it's too late. The call ended abruptly, and Miguel dropped the phone onto the table, his expression etched with frustration. We can't stay here long. That I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could formulate my question, a violent thud erupted outside the building, causing the walls to shudder. My heart raced in response to the familiar panic of dread. It was the enforcers, perhaps already on our trail. Miguel, I gasped, the realization clenching my chest. What do we do? Stay quiet, he hissed, darting toward the window, peering through the grimy glass. They're looking for someone, and if they find us here, he pulled away, anxiety curling his lips into a tight line. We're trapped. Then, from within the depths of the night, a chilling thought crept into my mind. Maria had always been the brave one to protect her. What if we were not just risking ourselves anymore? What if in trying to save her, we inadvertently placed her in even greater danger? The weight of our choices began to suffocate me as the shadows outside danced with an even darker intent. Before I could voice my fears, there was a subtle rustle at the door. My breath caught, uncertainty tightening its grip again as I turned sharply, every fiber in me demanding to know who or what stood at our threshold. I sensed a presence, something undeniably familiar within the darkened corridor. Miguel, I whispered, heart in my throat, as I braced myself for whatever awaited us on the other side, teetering on the edge of hope and despair, a precipice that could change everything. The door creaked open slowly, an eternity unraveling with each agonizing moment that passed. Shadows swirled around me like tendrils of doubt, and when a figure finally stepped into the dim light, disbelief washed over me like a cleansing wave. Maria? I gasped, disbelief mingling with a flicker of hope that ignited inside me. There she stood, pale but resilient, eyes wide and searching, a breathless blend of fear and determination etched upon her features. Thank God, Miguel breathed, relief momentarily diffusing the tension that had filled the room. Maria took a cautious step toward us, as if she were still unsure whether we were real or simply figments of her imagination. Are you okay? I asked, my voice trembling as reality sank in. She nodded, a soft smile breaking through the shadows enveloping us. I'm fine. I was hiding. I heard about everything. I had to come back. The edges of my mind finally started to relax. The realization that she was here alive felt surreal and thrilling. We thought you were gone. I almost was, she replied, looking back towards the door, as if echoes of the danger still lingered. They were out for blood, and I had to blend in to survive. Miguel stepped closer, urgency curling in the air around us. You led them on a chase, didn't you? How did you escape? I managed to overhear their plans. They're bigger than I thought, part of something, a web that goes deep into the heart of this place, she explained, barely able to contain her breath. But they won't stop until they find me. We need to act quickly. Determination surged through me, and I felt a resolve forming out of the chaos that had unfolded. This was our moment to breath before the plunge into the unknown. Then let's expose them. We need to get proof. We need to end their reign of terror. We can't let them hurt anyone else. The bar, Maria interjected, excitement lighting up her eyes. That's where they go. They gather there every night, discussing their plans, trading secrets. If we can record what they talk about, we might just have enough to take them down. Before I could articulate my thoughts, swirling madly, Miguel shot a concerned look towards the door, and I followed his gaze, hearing the distant sound of footsteps echoing in the hallway. I had feared this moment was racing toward us, like a freight train without intention to stop. They're coming, he hissed, pulling me toward the back door. My heart thundered in syncopation with my instincts screaming at me to run, a visceral urge born from the depths of our lives turned upside down. We'll go out the back way, Miguel insisted, urgency spiraling through him as he led, Maria and I on his heels. Outside, the night air greeted us with a cool rush that felt alive, almost electric, as we darted toward the winding alley that would lead us away from danger. As we pushed onward, the adrenaline coursing through our veins felt intoxicating, filling the air with renewed purpose made desperate by morbid reality. "Are you okay to run, Maria?" I asked, glancing back, worry etched across my features. "I'm fine. I can keep up," she replied, strength lacing her voice, though I could sense the underlying exhaustion beneath her bravado. "In here," Miguel urged, gesturing toward a narrow opening between two buildings. I didn't hesitate to follow him, my heart racing at the thought that there was no way back. We pressed through, squeezing between the grimy walls as if we were running from shadows that loomed heavier with the weight of loss and deceit. Once inside, we found ourselves in a dimly lit room, an old, abandoned storage area filled with remnants of forgotten belongings. Memories stacked with dust. "While I lie here for a moment," Miguel suggested, his voice tight with strain. The interior was damp, the musty smell clinging to my nostrils. I caught a glimpse of darker corners, filled with lurking ghosts tangled in the mess of our lives. But in that moment of hiding, a sliver of uncertainty crawled back into my mind. Maria, braving the unknown, had become our beacon of hope, the very embodiment of resilience. "We can still confront them," I said, the scripture of determination pulsating with every breath. "But we need your plan in place, Maria. We need a strategy to get what we need." She nodded, her eyes brightening with renewed resolve. "They gather at the bar tonight. We blend in, listen, and gather what we can. Just make sure no one suspects us." With a plan taking shape, I exhaled deeply, dispelling a whisper of my own fears. We had traveled this far across heartbreak and despair. There was no turning back. We owed it to everyone else, not just to Maria, but to every life tangled in their web, to unearth the truth, no matter the cost. As we prepared ourselves for what lay ahead, fresh determination ignited among our spirits. The fear that had gripped me transformed into resolve. I had stepped through the shadows, and there, in that tiny flicker of hope, I understood finally what it meant to stand together against insurmountable odds. We were a collective force now, a tapestry intertwining heartbreak with resilience, kindness with courage, illuminating even the darkest corners of despair. "Together, then?" Miguel asked. "Together," I affirmed. And as we began to sketch our plans, weaving threads of courage through the darkness, I could almost hear Mariah's voice whispering in the back of my mind, urging us onward, forward toward the path of light beyond the storm finally gathering on the horizon. As the weight of the world threatened to crush us yet again, I knew that within this shared purpose, the embers of hope would not flicker out. Perhaps, just perhaps, kindness could change everything. And with that realization, we stepped out into the night, determined to reclaim the light that was worth fighting for, the very spark that could ignite redemption, even in the depths of shadows.